So I don't really know what to say to start this video because obviously I have a bunch of videos already made, so this isn't my first one, but I haven't made one in 2 years, so it's like a bit of a, oh, what do I say, oh. So I'm just gonna carry on like I was never even gone. But last night I fell into a really dark hole and stayed up until 5 AM watching people's videos about their experience working for Mac, and it was all like the ones like why I quit Mac, why I got fired, blah 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 blah. So I figured I would tell my story of getting fired from Mac Cosmetics. In the time that I haven't been on YouTube, I actually did a makeup qualification and became a qualified makeup artist. I ended up getting a job at a brand new Mac store that opened in my city, in our airport. And it was brand new, all of the girls were a brand new team, nobody had been plucked from a different Mac store, and the store was not even open yet, so we were going to be the first ones in there. Everything was going to be brand new. So that was amazing, really exciting, because I had only had my makeup qualification for a few months. I had never had a retail job either, so I had no retail experience, so I really did not expect to get that job because obviously I'd worked at KFC for 5 years, that had been my only job, and it's hospitality, so it's quite difficult to move from there into retail because mostly they want retail experience. But I got the job, fuck knows how, but I did it. So I started at Mac and everything was amazing. It was like, oh my god, wow, like this is so cool getting to work with makeup all day, talk about makeup all day, I don't smell like fucking chicken grease and chip salt. Then as the time went by, the cracks started to show. So they opened our store with no store manager, so nobody was in charge. So our high up bosses were in Sydney or in New Zealand, so they weren't anywhere close to us. And then our airport boss was the boss of our, like the retailer that we were under. We did not work for Estee Lauder, we were under a different retailer who operates stores in airports. She didn't know anything about Mac, you know, she doesn't work at Mac, she works for the retailer. So she wasn't amazingly helpful, and she also was never in the store because she ran half the airport stores, so she was wandering around on the phone, you know, doing whatever all the time. So there was nobody in charge of us, nobody to help us with anything at all. There was another girl who had worked at a different one of the airport stores in the same airport previously to getting the job at Mac, and she basically had to teach us how to use the register, how to do anything, because there was nobody else there to help us. And even then it was still very difficult. We were just given a big old book. Anyone who works at Mac will know it's like a big book of all of the products, and we were just told, here you go, that's how you learn. The like first week when we opened, there was a lady there from like Sydney or New Zealand to kind of go through like the foundations, skincare, some of the more difficult stuff with us. And then off they all toddled and then left us to our own devices. So basically we were selling shit and just being like, yeah, this is great, oh my god, it's so amazing, it does this, this and this, and none of us fucking knew what we were saying because we don't know shit. So there was only one girl there who had worked at another Mac store previously to working there, so nobody knew shit about anything. So like I said, I had never worked at a retail store before, so obviously it was a bit of a change going from hospitality to retail to making sales, pushing sales. So I obviously didn't have the highest KPI of everybody. I didn't make maybe as much sales as everybody. I certainly wasn't making like no sales, you know, I had amazing days, and I had days where my KPI was like amazing, but I didn't always meet the target every day, which is to be expected because it was my first 2 months working in retail and where I had never worked, and there was no one there to help me, to coach me, to show me what to do. We had no manager, and we had actually been told by one of the Sydney bosses that they were not going to promote internally for the management position and that they were going to hire from outside of the store. Then a couple of weeks go by and one of the girls comes in one day and basically says that she's the manager now, that she had picked this other girl to be the assistant manager, and it was all a bit like, what the fuck just happened? So I contacted our boss from the airport and I said, well, how come she's the manager? No one's been told anything about anything. Surely, you know, shouldn't everybody be given like an equal opportunity? But I didn't expect to get a store manager's position because I didn't have very much retail experience, but I at least wanted to show that I was interested in the business and, you know, moving up. And I was told by the boss that she wasn't a manager and that she had just been told that while we have no manager, while they're still looking for one, she could do some extra things. So that way when the Sydney bosses came down in a month's time, she could show, oh, I've done this and this and this, and then maybe then they would promote internally. So she told me I could do the same thing. Weeks and weeks go by or whatever, and basically it was all just a load of bullshit. This other girl basically took it upon herself to be the manager, was bossing everyone around, acting like she was the manager. Anytime you wanted to speak to the airport boss, she was like, oh, I'll speak to her, I'll say it, I'll do it. They were also sending her specifically all of the information about new promotions, like how the displays were supposed to look, all of that kind of stuff, and weren't sending anybody else any of it. This was annoying me because at this point they had told me that I had an interview for the management position, and here I am trying to show that I can do things, and then they're specifically sending it all to her and nothing to me, so how am I supposed to show that I can do anything? And it basically seemed like they had already made their minds up, which in hindsight they clearly already had. So the day of the management interview comes, I go in and I sit down with the lady who I'd had my original interview with, and then a man from Sydney who was like, I don't know what the fuck he actually did. Yeah, they did my management interview, and basically what it ended up being was me being yelled at for like 30-40 minutes about how the store's not making enough money. They basically asked me, you know, oh, how I thought things were going, and I was really honest. I was like, well, they're not going amazing because we don't have a manager. And I was like, people are starting to leave early whenever they feel like it, like take extra smoke breaks, like go out for coffees, just like walk across and get a coffee like while they're still clocked on, whatever. We obviously need a manager because people are just doing whatever the hell they like. And then I'm the one who started getting yelled at for that, even though I never did any of that. I didn't even go to the toilet when I was like on shift. I'm getting yelled at for that, and then getting yelled at being told we're not making as much money, our sales have gone down, you know, KPIs aren't great, blah 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 blah. Bearing in mind we opened in December. December is a busy month. It is Christmas. We're in an airport, so people are going on holiday, people are buying gifts. Flash forward to January, people aren't doing any of that. People don't go on holiday in the middle of January. People don't spend a lot of money in January because they've just spent a lot of money at Christmas. January is a quiet month, and when you work at a store like Mac, where they don't have sales on anything except the Christmas collection that nobody wants to buy because it's all the leftover shit that nobody wanted to buy, people aren't gonna buy as much as they bought in December. It's fucking common sense. But they were like, oh, blah blah blah, you're not making as much money, we never expect to see like a store open and then go down in sales the next month. I've got stores in Melbourne that are making much more than you and have 4 staff members when you have 7. You know, if you don't start making more money, we're gonna get rid of people, blah 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 blah. And they basically didn't ask me like anything about what I would do as a manager whatsoever. So I kind of left that interview really annoyed and just really scared as well, because I was like, well, obviously if they're gonna get rid of people, it's gonna be me, because I was the last one to get hired and I probably have the worst KPI out of everyone because I've never done retail and there's no one fucking here to help me at all. I obviously didn't get the job. I got told that the same day that I didn't get the job. The other girl from the store who had been bossing everyone around got the job, which I thought was a bit of a fucking joke when she was the one leaving early and going out and getting coffee. And then I spoke to my airport boss because I literally went home that night after my interview and started looking for new jobs, because I was like, well, I'm gonna lose my job obviously because they're gonna get rid of me when I'm gonna be the first one to be gotten rid of. So I spoke to my airport boss and I said what they had said to me, and she literally said these words: I bet you my whole year's wage that nobody loses their job. And I was like, oh, okay, and then that's fine. She was like, I'm really annoyed that they've said this to you, and you know, this is not okay, blah, 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 that they've said this to me. And so I felt really great. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So nobody's gonna lose their job, we're all good, it's fine. I have the weekend off, and then I come back in and do my shift. I start at 6:30 in the morning, work through till 2:30. It comes to about 2, and I get pulled aside by her and then the girl who was now the store manager, and they take me like around the back into a really quiet area. Like, I had made so much money that day. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, my KPI was amazing, my sales were amazing. And then they sit me down and she just literally says to me, she's like, so here's your week's notice, we just don't think you're suited for the role. And I was like, excuse me? And I was just like, what do you mean I'm not suited for the role? What have I done wrong? And they literally were just like, oh, well, you're still on your probationary period, so we don't actually have to tell you. We don't have to tell you why. And I was like, so you're not gonna give me a reason at all? So you're just telling me that I'm fired and you're not giving me a reason at all? And they were like, we don't have to tell you. And then I was like, so whose decision was this? And they were like, we don't have to tell you. And I straight up said, I was like, this is just because we're not making enough money. She's just being promoted, so needs more money, more hours. So clearly you're getting rid of me because we're not making enough money to keep me. And they were like, no, that's not it. And I was like, so what is it? And they were just like, no, we don't have to tell you. What the actual fuck? Like, are you actually joking? I was literally sat there like, so I quit my job that I had had for 5 years where I was a manager for this job where you have sacked me after 2 months. You literally promised me the other day that nobody was gonna lose their jobs, and she just was like, yeah, I did. And I was like, well, and she was like, yeah. I know this is hard. I'm like, you're not the one who's gonna fucking not be able to live anymore. Like, I can't actually afford to lose this job. I have a car to pay for, I have to pay for rent. Like, my family already struggles enough. I can't actually afford to not work. And they're like, yeah, I'm really sorry. You've got your week's notice. I'm like, well, a week's not exactly enough to find a new job, is it? Not in Adelaide. I still had a bunch of shifts left that week, and they were like, oh, you can finish your shifts for the week. And then the girl who was the store manager said, but if it's too hard, you know, we can sort something out. And then the airport manager goes, but you'll probably need the money. Fuck you, hunty, I don't need the money that much, so I fucking just took all of my sick leave and told them to shove it up their arse. And then, because when you work in the airport, you have to have like a special airport security badge, and I still had like my Mac necklace, whatever at home, and I live 40 minutes from the airport. I was going to the airport like 4 days later because I was actually going away 4 days later, and I said to them at the time, I was like, well, I'll bring them back in on the Saturday and I'll drop them in the store then. And then they sent me an email and were like, you need to bring it all back like today or tomorrow. It can't be Saturday, it needs to be sooner than that. And I just thought, is that an actual fucking joke? Like, not happening. You've just sacked me and you want me to waste my fucking petrol driving 40 minutes to the airport to fucking hand you over a bunch of shit? Fuck off. I've never been treated like that in my life, and I worked at KFC for 5 years with the worst manager ever. Like, I've honestly never been so shocked in my entire life that they could just do that to somebody. If you want to work at Mac in Australia, I'd recommend definitely not travel retail unless you want to get treated like garbage. And here's another thing, I just want you to know, at travel retail, they don't fucking take you to makeup training, they don't let you do makeup on people. We're not supposed to do makeup on anybody except for like applications of like foundation to match or like trying on a lipstick. They wouldn't let us do full face makeups. This video is probably just like a really bad rambly rant, but it's really hard for me to make my thoughts cohesive about this whole thing because it was honestly so destroying. Like, I cannot explain to you how depressed I was when they fired me, because I just thought my life was over. I had nothing. I had worked since I was 15. And then all of a sudden they were just like, yeah, bye, and I was like having to go to Centrelink. I'm sorry if this video was really rambly and weird, but yeah, I just felt like I wanted to tell my story. Yeah, you can check out my old videos, although I wouldn't because I probably look A, disgusting, and B, they're probably really bad. Or you can check out my Instagram or Twitter, they'll be linked below, and hopefully subscribe because I am going to be posting new things now. I don't know what they're gonna be, but you know, it'll be more of this at the very least. So I'm just gonna leave it there and go, yeah, thanks for watching.